what ends up happening is his wife ends up splitting the property equally with their children. I think it was 6 or 7 different ways. So instead of his wife getting everything, because there was nothing, when you go through probate, you kind of at the mercy of what they decide to do. So she ended up splitting this property equally with her children. Probably not what he would have done. Probably not what he would have preferred. But not having that stuff in place, you're kind of at the mercy. And so that opening story, and here's the worst part. So they end up having to sell the property. They held on to the homestead where the grandmother stayed. End up having to sell the rest of the property. That's bad enough, so it didn't stay in the family. The upshot of it was, a few years later, there was oil found on the property. So you talk about a costly mistake by not having the appropriate documents in place. And I don't know how much the oil was worth. Didn't really get into the detail on that, but I tell you, that's got to be almost sickening to the family. When all it would have taken was just a fairly inexpensive document called a will, and they could have avoided all that headache that they eventually had to deal with. So, when we're talking about teaching our children to manage money, I think that's a great place to start. Estate planning, right? I mean, that's what this story talks about, estate planning. I'm still shocked at how many people don't have a will in place. I'm often shocked at the people who don't have what I consider the first step in estate planning is a will. Anybody want, what, in your own words, what does a will do for you? Does anybody want to, feel like talking? What does a will do for you? Anybody?
Good evening, Mount Zion. I'm not married. I don't have any children, but I do have a will. I'm the oldest of 4, and they're all grown now. But to ensure that I'm taken care of properly when I pass away, and even if I have debt or a mortgage, the estate planning allows me to have faith in my siblings that are in the will to take care of everything when I'm gone. And also, Carrie, there's also a term insurance policy I have that will take care of anything that needs to be taken care of, so no money comes out of your pocket. And I also have a clause in the will that takes care of nieces and nephews because I don't have children. But it's that peace of mind while you're still living that when you pass on, I could pass on today, tonight, or tomorrow, but everything's in place. So,
Perfect.
And I actually keep it up to date when changes occur.
That's a very important point.
Yeah, my mother died last year, and she was in the will, so I had to get it updated this year to make sure she was taken out, and then you had to redistribute everything, among everybody else who's still living.
That's a great point, that little tag about updating it when your circumstances change, because it could be outdated. As soon as something significant happens in your life, your will could be, obviously, it's outdated. So that's an important piece of that to make sure you as you said, stuff had to be redistributed, right? And so great point. Anybody else want to jump in here? Oh, yes, sir.
Good evening. It's great she's got a will, because if you should die without a will, then they call it dying intestate. And what that means is you have not really no power in determining where your assets go. In most states, they have laws that dictates, what happens. In most states, maybe 100% to spouse, and then some states 50% to spouse and each surviving child. So you may or may not want it to go that way, and then you got the process of probating what's left in the will, and that can be a long, drawn-out process with assets tied up until somebody gets a clear legal right to make those decisions or to be the new owners of whatever the property is. So it's not a good situation to die without a will. It throws your family into turmoil and probably other problems, and I think things go a lot smoother if you have already said what you would like to happen. It doesn't leave a lot of room for conflict.
I'm glad you mentioned about the amount of time it can take when stuff gets tied up into probate, because it's not unusual for that can go a year or more, right? I mean, it's not unusual for people, and so you assume that your family and loved ones left behind could probably use those assets, but they can't get to them because they're tied up. So great point. I'm glad you mentioned that. Anybody else? All right, so we want to make sure we can hear you. I want to go get this mic for you, okay?
Also, when my mother passed last year, she didn't have a will, so we had the experience going through probate. And she was lived in a small county here in Georgia, and fortunately, it takes time. It took about 4 weeks because they have to put the notice in the paper as well. And thank God I have 3 other siblings where we get along, and we all agreed of how to handle her estate. So she had a home and property and so forth, her bank accounts. We had to take care of that. So, you know, having that family unity helped out a lot. And for her being in a small town, it didn't get tied up as long as we thought it would.
Mm-hmm.
Thank the Lord. But we talked to her about a will. She was just fearful of getting one. I was that first too, years and years ago. I said, well, if I get a will, maybe I'll die tomorrow. You know, that's the mental
That's the
state.
thinking, right?
That's a mental thing.
Yeah.
So about 10 years ago, I made that investment. So, but that was something that, you know, she didn't want to do. And you know, from that generation,
Right.
you know, something
Right.
she didn't want to do. But probate is a thing that, depending on the state, like the gentleman said, where you are, you could get tied up for years and years and
Mm-hmm.
years. Yeah.
So in a lot of situations, whenever someone prepares a will for you, there are a couple of pieces of it that usually, a lot of times goes with it, and that is powers of attorney, right? Powers of attorney for healthcare, powers of attorney for financial. Those are the 2 like really big ones. A lot of times you'll see they're tagged onto a last will and testament. So let's move to another document that can be very important. That is a trust. Anybody know what a trust? Tell me what a trust is? And sometimes people get the will and the trust mixed up, actually. So let's try to distinguish between the will and the trust. Anybody?
A trust is, excuse me, good evening, everybody, but a trust is, it's like you still living. Everything that you write down that you want done, that's actually, as in layman terms, bylaws. Everything, you got to follow the bylaws to even touch the money. You got to do this, you got to do that. But it's your wishes, just like a will. But if you die today, the ball keeps on rolling. The co-trustee takes over, and he's running the business just like you were still living.
Perfect, thank you. That's it. I mean, so yeah, those assets or whatever it is, they roll to the charge of a trustee who's then responsible for doing whatever you preferred and whatever you've written out for those particular assets or whatever the case may be. So yeah, thank you very much. I just want to throw that out there because, so the will obviously is not in play until you're dead, right? That's one of the big differences. It's like, it's not effective until you are actually not here. So one of the discussions the author kind of talked through a little bit was, how do we, let's move from the estate planning, just personal finance in general. How do we pass along? How do we train? What are some ideas you can share with me how we can train our children to be responsible in how they manage their money? Anybody want to just jump out there? Nothing, just what are some of the ways we can do that? Yes, sir, in the back.
Yes, like I had mentioned before in this earlier in this series that that corporate household of yours, that dining room table, that's the boardroom. While you sit around eating, talk about this stuff. While you doing bills, let them see how you do bills. When you talking about making a major purchase, let them understand how discussing the budget is going to fit in. That's just small things like that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yes.
Just as a parent, I noticed I had to teach my son the value of money. Growing up with us, I mean, I guess we lived an okay life, so all his needs were met. When he started working, it was just extra because he never really had to want for anything. So when he started working, if his friends asked for something, he would just give it to them. It was nothing for him to give out $50, $60. Like, it was nothing. And we had to talk to him and say, okay, how many hours did you have to work? How hard was it for you to get this money? And now you're just giving it away to someone that just gets it because they said something nice to you that day?
Right.
And then he had to realize, okay, that's the value of money. My blood, sweat, and tears is for this money. And then we had to talk about tithing and him understanding that you owe God that 10% and to put it in and to notice how you're never without. You always have what you need. So it was a lesson, but it was like a life lesson. We could talk about it, but until he had to experience the hard work and being tired from coming home from work and realizing how hard it was, that's when it kind of started to click for him.
Right. Awesome. Thank you. Anybody else want to jump in here? Let me share something with you right quick. Like, when I was looking at this and started thinking about it, I really started to take my mind back a few years. And I think I obviously haven't done everything right when it comes to this topic with my children. I would not even say it's even close to that. But I do think one of the things that my wife and I did do well is simply allow them to understand, kind of like you're saying, kind of like we allowed them to understand and to see that it's not unlimited. Money's not unlimited. And I will tell you, a part of our story was when we started to really get our house in order financially and like really locked in. I'm talking about, I was probably annoying. She'll tell you, I was annoying. I was so locked in because I was like, we cannot continue to make someone else rich with this debt, servicing that debt. We can't continue to do that if we want to build our own wealth over here. They don't work together. So when we locked in, guys, we went to the store and bought some envelopes. Like, I mean, I know you know about this. I'm sure you've heard about it, but we literally put our bigger primary expenses for the month in envelopes. Food, clothing. We had a miscellaneous envelope. We had a budget that was so tight. And we were laughing the other night, as a matter of fact, because my wife, whenever we got paid, she would be the one to go to the bank and get the cash to put in those envelopes. And that's what we had in those categories for the month. Now, I'm telling you, we were serious. I told you, we were serious about this. It was a little annoying because we were laughing again because when you get to the end of the month, you got change in the envelopes. It's just jingle. Because you spent the dollars, and you got change, and you got to figure out what to do with this change, right? But my sons, to this day, will tell you, I got tired of talking about those envelopes. They will tell you, I was so tired of those envelopes. But what it allowed them to see was, as I said, look, it's not unlimited. And one of my sons actually said, I didn't understand. I actually thought we were really struggling, Dad. That's what he told me. He said, I really thought we were struggling. You know why he thought we were struggling? because I didn't give them the impression that you could get whatever, whenever, and that we had an unlimited supply of money. I didn't allow him to think that. So as he got older, he realized, oh, I see what you were doing. You were literally telling your dollars where to go. I said, yeah, that's what I was doing. He understands that now, but then all he saw was these annoying envelopes that's not allowing me to get what I want when I want it. But I think that was one of the best lessons ever, because to this day, my oldest son, he's on his own now, but he will tell you that that made such an impression on him. And now he's on his own, and he maybe go a little too far, but he can squeeze $1. So you got to balance it out too. But that made an impression on him. Like, you know what? I got to do this. When I'm on my own, I gotta. So that's my story. That's my thing that I think we did well to expose them to that, and not let them. I always say you can afford anything. You just can't afford everything. All right? I mean, that's the rule. We can enjoy some stuff. You're gonna enjoy some things you just want and we can do that, but it won't be everything, right? Anybody else want to jump in right here? Nobody? What have you done well? What have you done? I saw a hand back here.
I was just saying, don't be hurt. You teach them all of their life. Ooh, thank you, sir. If you teach them all of their life, and they don't seem to ever hear anything that you say, but once they get 21, 22, 23 and start mixing with people who know, let's say, about investing in real estate and who knows about investing in stocks, they'll come back and play it to you like they're teaching you. And do you know that I've been talking to you and telling you about this ever since you were 13, 14, 15 years old?
That's right.
But however they get it, it's fine with me. You just thank God that they finally got it and
Right.
got excited about it, because they didn't care nothing about it when I was trying to teach it to them.
That's exactly right. I think, I will tell you, I think I might have ruined him a little bit, because I'm like, because our big thing was don't overspend on vehicles. That was okay, let me just say this. I think overspending on vehicles is one of the biggest things that keeps us from building wealth. I really do. I really do. I think that's one of the biggest single factors, because we love vehicles. The new car smell and all that, that's powerful, right? It is. But that's one of the things we taught him. Hey, it's not necessarily who drives the nicest car, because to be honest with you, who drives the nicest car, not necessarily the best off financially. And it might be because of that. It could be because of that very nice vehicle. You don't know everybody's situation, but don't get caught up into that, because there's so many examples of people who don't look the part but actually are. I mean, they don't even look wealthy, but they are. And then there's so many people who look wealthy. When you look underneath the cover, it's like, oh my goodness, not even close. But you would never know that, right? We can see the car driving down the road. That's what gets people, right? We can see that. So people, when you're out and about, ooh, that is a bad ride. Rarely has anybody told me that my car was the nicest car in the parking lot. Rarely. But I taught my children that's not the thing. That's hard, guys. That is right. That's hard, because those, like I said, we love the vehicles. We all do. But I try to teach them, hey, I want you to be more interested in buying income-producing assets as opposed to looking like you got something that you really don't have. That's been my focus, on buying assets that will produce income for you today and tomorrow. So I've tried to teach that, and I think it stuck a little bit. And that's a great thing. Anybody else?
Yeah, so with that, what you just said, when I call that, you're wanting what it looks like and not what it feels like to have resources. That car in the garage, that house you're in, all reality, most people that's flashy like that, we call them fake, that they're house poor, their car notes is month to month barely making it, and also that if how you put it is, if you look out in your driveway look in your house, look in your closet, clothes you don't even wear. If it adds up to more what you got in your savings account, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, yeah. That's exactly right. If you're spending 40% of your monthly income on a car loan, you're probably doing something wrong. And also, just read the other day, this is as of the second quarter of this year, the 5-year loan on vehicles is now the minority. Now, most of them are 6 and 7 years. If you got to finance a vehicle for 6 or 7 years, I'm not saying this is a rule, but there's a chance you probably couldn't afford that vehicle. So the 5-year loan is now in the minority as of second quarter of this year. Yes, ma'am.
And I wanted to also add, society knows that as a people, we're so into things like a car. So it's easy to get approved for a car. I mean, you can go in there and in hours and get approved for a car that could be the same amount as a house, and then you can't get approved for a house, or it takes you a year or so trying to get your credit fixed in order to get that house. And so that's another strategy to keep us from not building wealth. And some cars are just as much as a house, you know. You can fix the house up. You buy a 80 Teslas, for example. 6-figure car, some of them. So you can get a house that price, but you can go in and get a Tesla, go up to Atlanta and probably be approved for that, but cannot be approved for a home.
Right. I think in one of the earlier sessions when Pastor was talking about, I think it might have been the very first one, he kind of touched on net worth. Remember we talking about that? And that's an objective. Sometimes we think about net worth as, that's just for people who have a lot of money. Net worth just allows you to see what direction you need to go. That's kind of how I think about it. In other words, if you take what you own and subtract what you owe, obviously if that number is negative, you got some work to do, right? I mean, that's pretty simple. But that's kind of the things, when you start thinking about, math is pretty powerful, and it's also objective, right? It tells a story. And I've found out, just through experience, there are a lot of us who are afraid to really look at what we have because you're afraid of what you're going to see. So I was just like, okay, you can't be scared. You just got to see what it is. It is what it is. You can decide where to go from there, but so when he was talking about net worth a few weeks ago, I was thinking about that. That's just kind of what we can use to determine where we need to go. And seeing that and knowing that you want it to get higher, that number to get larger, that will be the thing that says, you know what, I think I should probably just go ahead and pay off this debt that I've got, because that just paying off this debt is going to cause my net worth to go up, even if you don't save anything else, right? I mean, those kind of things, it just kind of gives you direction on the things that you probably want to look at working on in your personal finances, because that's just, again, it's math, it's objective, and it's going to tell you right there in black and white where you stand. And I will tell you, the first time I did that, I was scared to death, and it was not pretty. But you know what? It allowed me to say, okay, yeah, like I just said, you got some work to do. Either you're going to do it or you're going to crawl up in the corner and and cry about it, right? I mean, those are the two choices. So anybody else want to jump in right here?
I just want to add, also, you need to watch your relationships that after you done worked on your own finances and gotten in a place to where you're comfortable. Watch your relationships that you get involved with, because if they haven't gotten themselves together, and it's just going to pull you back and make you feel guilty, or, you just got to be in control of that also.
Thank you. Different views on money in relationships is one of the biggest things that tears them up. And that's been consistent for many years now. You think one way, she thinks another way. If you guys are not aligned, or if you are not able to get aligned, that is one of the first things that tears things up in a relationship. So, yeah, absolutely. Did I see another hand? There's a particular method that the author mentioned. I don't want to just touch on also. He was talking about. Did you guys read about the 3-jar method? What do you think about that? Well, first of all, what is the 3-jar method? If you looked at it, if you got the book.
Yeah, it's like you take part of your money for tithing and put it in one jar, put another part for savings, and you live off of the rest.
Yes, that's it. 10% for tithing, 10% for short-term savings, 10% for long-term savings, and live off of 70%. Is basically what it boils down to. Anybody ever done anything like that with your children or anything similar? Nothing? I didn't do anything like that either, but I did think it's a good idea. It doesn't matter what the amount of money is, whatever they have, you split it up into those segments. And if you think about it, it is a great way for them to, kind of like the envelopes I was talking about. You put it in the jar. Hey, once this money in this 70% jar is gone, you're done for them. You're done for this month, right? I mean, so it's kind of what you were talking about. I mean, a different way to get there, helping them understand the value of money. And as my mom used to say, it does not grow on trees. So I saw something the other day, actually. What is lifestyle inflation? Anybody want to tell me what that is? Lifestyle inflation? Okay, so it's basically, as you start to make a little more money, then your lifestyle increases at the same rate that your income increase. So the net result is you're no better off. You're no better off. It is alarming that people who are 6-figure earners who live paycheck to paycheck. It has nothing to do with income. And a lot of times we think, oh, if you make this, no, it's alarming, the people who have really good incomes and literally live paycheck to paycheck. I've seen it. It's like, my direct deposit didn't go in this week. What am I going to do? Well, you make $150. What do you mean? You don't have anything in a bank or anything? You just literally are waiting for that next check. But it's shocking. Knowing people who are high earners who live that way. And that's hard for me to fathom now, but I mean, you can see it could easily happen. You start enjoying it, your lifestyle starts inflating, right? As you make more, your lifestyle, you got to say, okay, I'm balling now, so I got to show a little bit of it, and we do. Yes, sir.
That what you just said about 6 figures. Look, looks like we just on the TV this last week, this big $1-point-something billion lotto. If I want to hit that lotto, okay, or you hit the lotto, you got $1.8 billion. You have the same problems, bigger problems with that same $100 you had in your pocket last week.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
And for, like you said, the 6 figures. Like a minister, I can't think of her name, but she spoke about the people you're around. The mindset that you're around, that's more than likely you live in the same lifestyle they live in. That one person that might be in your circle that's not living like y'all living, y'all ragging them because he's saving money. He ain't going to lunch every day. He ain't got no fancy car, but you're ragging on him. I mean, you get his old jalopy fixed, that kind of stuff. But like I said, that $1 problem, it's just 1 billion times bigger if you hit that lotto. You can't manage a dollar, you can't manage that. It's all a mindset.
It's all a mindset. It has nothing to do with the amount. Absolutely, totally agree with that. Nothing to do with the amount that you're dealing with. If the thinking doesn't change. The author made the point, and before I even saw it in a book, this is You know, the pastor has talked a few times about, or he's mentioned a number of times since I've been at this church about the things that are caught and not taught. In other words, the things that people learn from you, the things you learn just by observation. And I have to think about that. This is what I had to think for myself. What are my children learning about money just by observing me? Are they learning that I'm fine with pulling out the plastic? Even if it's something not so really important, if I just want it, are they learning that, oh yeah, we can do this? I'll pay it off eventually. Is that what they're learning? And that's a serious question. Sometimes we can talk until we're, say, blue in the face, but I mean, what are they observing in our actions is as important as anything, no matter what we say to them, right? I mean, that's going to really tell them what you really believe, what they're observing. I mean, are they witnessing you? If you're running short on money, do you put a stick of gum on the credit card? I mean, that's an exaggeration, right? But you get the point. Is that what they're learning from us? And so I really started to think about what I'm doing and what they're seeing, and that's important for all of us. Like as I said, regardless of what we say is important to us. The screen closed out here for a second. Hold on one second. Sorry. Emergency fund. That's come up a few times over the last few weeks, right? Emergency fund. That's another thing. I've recently had that discussion with one of my children. Hey, you need to get an emergency fund in place. Yeah, I know you're just starting out, but get that in place because life is going to happen. The unexpected is going to happen. And the last thing you want to have to do is, as I said a minute ago, emergency comes up, you don't have the money, you got to pull out a credit card. That's the easy way. Okay, but how many months should we have? I know this actually came up before, but how many months of emergency funds should we have? I see 3, I heard 6, I heard 9. Yeah, I mean, I think, I hate to sound be like dogmatic about it, but I mean, I think 3 is fine starting out with. I mean, that's to try to build and get to that point is great. And I will tell you, and you think about this, I think there's a difference if you've got more than one income in the household, you probably need to work to get to at least 6 or more, right? Because at that point, if you don't have another income in the house, it's really on you. If you got a spouse who has income as well, maybe you can go with 3, maybe. And that's why we say personal finance is definitely personal. But there's some things that, there's some kind of basic things that we kind of need to try to get in place just to establish a foundation. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. That what you just said about that second income. God put Adam in the Garden of Eden. It had multiple rivers flowing into it. So you can't fish one out. Because if that river goes dry, he's got several more to fish from. That's a key point, especially, I hate to want to get in people's business, but when you're married, especially when you're young and married, why are you living off both incomes? Why not go and establish it then? If both of y'all working, one's going to household, this is what we're going to live off of. We're going to invest, make this money grow. So when I'm 45, we're done working. We through it all that. We're going to enjoy life together. But like I said, that multiple streams of income, there's something in your life that you love to do, enhance it, make it a skill set, make somebody pay you for it.
That's extremely powerful, and when you can do that, what you just mentioned about live off of, if you do have to, live off of one, save and invest the other one if you can do that. First of all, that's going to force you to not engage in that lifestyle inflation that we just talked about. You're going to force yourself, and you'll be happy you did, because that's a great foundation to build. Yes, sir.
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
My bonus son was, he just recently got married. They just celebrated their second year anniversary. And his wife just started working this past year, and that is something that they do. The one income, they live off of his income, and then her income, half of it goes to emergency fund, and the other half goes to investments. And they're looking into investing in land. So they've been researching, all over Georgia and North Carolina, some places that they could invest in land. So they're just allowing some of that money to build up until they can purchase land.
That's powerful stuff right there when you can do that. That is absolutely, that'll catapult you so far ahead of most people. And, if you look at the aggregate numbers and just in this country alone, most people, the larger percentage of people are not really doing well. And there's some of it's because of things that are out of their control. Okay, let's acknowledge that does happen. But once you move that to the side, there are a lot of people who are really not in great shape. I read a stat the other day that said the U.S. stock market, U.S. equities, 1/5 of it is owned by foreign investors. 1/5 of it is owned by people from outside of this country. We're in a capitalist society. We might as well acknowledge that. And we need to participate. Once we learn from some foundation, we really need to participate. 1/5, that's a large chunk of the U.S. equities that are owned by folks outside of this country. So we can't sit here and just act like, okay, we can ignore that. The market is a way that people for generations have built wealth. It is one of the ways that people have built wealth for generations. And we just have to participate. We have to learn, obviously, we have to learn, and now there's more access to information than there ever has been to the general public. My dad didn't trust the stock market. He was in another, you know what I mean? I mean, he didn't know enough about it, and he really didn't trust it. But as we come along, we have to participate, take advantage of that ability to build wealth for ourselves. And it's not just for ourselves, it's for our children, it's for even generations to come. It's been an amazing thing. And, I always talk about when I mentioned about the cars a minute ago, one of the things I always say, and I did a comparison, I said, boy, the average car payment today, I don't know what it is, but I think it's somewhere around 700, maybe high 600, something like that. It depends on what you're looking at. It could be something like that. I always say, if you just didn't have that payment, and you just simply dump that money over the last 20 years into an S&P 500 fund, it's scary how much better off you would be. So it comes down to what you value. That's really what it boils down. It comes down to what you value. We're talking about teaching our children to manage. That's the biggest piece of it. Go back to your very first statement, teaching them the value of it, and kind of give them direction on what they should be valuing. If most of our money is going into things that are depreciating, and not enough are going into assets that can throw off income for us and our families, we have to recalibrate. We have to rethink about that. As shiny as that whatever you got is, red, whatever color it is, we have to think about, okay, is this more important than me doing something to try to secure some assets for the day when either I can't or I don't want to work anymore? That's worth it just right there, right? I mean, that's a worthy goal right there. Put that money in something that's going to create income so that I can shut it down in a reasonable amount of time. Did I see? Yes, yes, sir.
I just got a question for you. Now, I got a car, and it's a Mercedes, but I got kids that live in New Orleans, and I got kids that live in Roanoke Robbins. So you still got to have something dependable and something that you need to travel with. So, I mean, I'm just saying that we just can't shy away from everything and can't live our life ourselves neither.
Great point. Great point. I will tell you, for about, and this isn't, but for about a 7 or 8 year period, I bought a number of cars. They were all reliable. But again, it just, I mean, they weren't hoopties, right? They weren't hoopties. But and we just made the decision. But they were used. They were used, and we didn't overpay, and on a number of occasions we didn't finance them. But that was a decision made in order to get us to somewhere else. Again, not everybody has to do that. You're right. You need reliable transportation. That's not what I'm saying. Yeah, I don't want you to misunderstand me. Oh, well, let me go back. But my point is, you know when it is when you've overdone it. That's my point. You know when you've overdone it. You know when you spent, as I mentioned a second ago, 40% of your gross monthly income on your car note every month. That's overdoing it, right? I mean, I think we can all agree that's probably a little tight, in my opinion. Yes, ma'am. Oh.
Okay, well, I have 2 vehicles that are of age. In '04 Chevrolet Suburban, still running. In an '08 Pontiac Grand Prix, I have put 371,000 miles in, still going. But I do want that Maybach. Mercedes Maybach, and that's way up there. Right. And I feel like I deserve it one day. But if someone can show me how I can get that car without spending 40% of my income, I surely will be driving one.
That's the key, right?
Thank you. Please and thank you.
Wait, how many miles on that last one?
371,000.
Go get you a car. No.
And driving to Atlanta almost every weekend.
With that, what she just said, I'm pretty sure both of them cars are paid for. Get that envelope he's talking about. Don't put your car note in there. The first thing you know, you can walk in and pay cash for it.
I just want to say that this discussion kind of reminds me about that scripture which says that my people perish because of lack of knowledge. And it's so important to get the knowledge, because how can you manage something that you don't know anything about? And why back in, our ancestors was prevented from reading, why do you think they didn't want us to read? To get knowledge, because knowledge is powerful, right? So I think I agree with what you were saying about the mindset. I think that's what differentiates people that are managing their money well and doing well versus the ones that's not doing well. It's about your mindset, and it's been said that we spend all of our money, I think you mentioned that, on things that depreciate instead of appreciate, such as clothes, jewelry, fancy cars. But let me say this, I don't think it's anything wrong with getting you a nice car if you can afford it. But it's when we can't afford it and we're trying to look good to people. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if people think the more money they spend on something, that means it's the best of the best. And I'm trying to get one of my adult children to see that it does not matter that you paid all this money on something. You could have got something just as good for less. Yeah. You can get a brand new car and drive off the lot. Next week it's broke down because you got a lemon. Right. So, it's not about how much money you spend, and it's not about how much money you make. It's about how you manage the money that you're spending. And that's why they call me a penny pincher, because my name is Penny. I pinch pennies. I seriously do. So I think it's a mindset thing. also.
You ever been called cheap?
Frugal.
Frugal, okay. There you go.
I'm very frugal.
There you go.
Very frugal.
That was my next synonym, frugal. Okay, I'll go with that. Thank you. I've been called that too, by the way, so it's okay.
And also, earlier you was talking about how we learn at home. And I think that's just the foundation of it, that, you know, you learn from your parents. You know, from my experiences, is how, you know, watching my mom, because I wasn't raised with a father, watching her, and I'm just like her. And I think, just like Penny just said, it's so important that we, churches, teach this, because my parents did not know this. They could not teach me this. So, you know, and I told Pastor when he first started teaching on finances, I wish I would have known this 40 years ago, you know, because I was in some good companies with stocks, and, you know, but didn't know how to invest and things like that. So it is important to teach your children. That's what the words say, train them up the way they should go. Because now that these, the millennials are watching what, just like we watched our parents, they're watching what the millennials are doing now. So, you know, these young people, I employed them, not employed, I admire them because they're learning, you know, they're beginning. But what I love about this book, and I'll be finished, is that he started out, he learned it from Bible study. They included the spiritual part. And see, that's what we're going to get from the world, their intake of it. But we need to make sure that our children also learn that spiritual aspect of finances.
Thought I saw another hand.
Thank you. And what the two ladies talked about too, the passage in here on page 173, the scripture talks about a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. Bottom line, we talked about generational wealth. We talk about legacy. And our kids see that coming from us. And that builds upon them as they get older to build it for their children and their family as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I see a couple of you. It's like you really want to say something, but you're not saying it. What? Who is that? There you go. Look. There you go.
You know, sometimes I think that we have to unlearn some things. I know of a person who has a nice house, and every room there are purses, and she's like, it's just there all over the place. And instead of selling the purses, she's come to the point where she has to either file bankruptcy or get rid of the purses. She's gonna file bankruptcy. She will not get rid of the purses. And you know, that's something that's deep inside of that.
Right.
You know, that she's so, I'm like, you got all these purses, just get rid of them. Take them to Poshmark, do something. She refuses to do it. So I think a lot of times we just have to unlearn some things.
Good point. Wow. I believe I can sell a couple of purses. Keep me. That's going to help me stay out of bankruptcy. Who else got something to share with us, or ask, or contribute? Yeah, guys, I don't want you to, let me just revisit this. I don't want anybody to think that I think you should just drive in a jalopy. All right. Yeah, have you a decent car. My whole point is just don't overdo it to the point where it affects your ability to as I keep repeating, to invest in income-producing assets. That's the main point. There was a stat that at one point in our history, 50% of the average person's income went to the combination of taxes and debt. You think about that. The combination of taxes and debt, as much as 40 to 50% of your income. I mean, that's crippling. that can be crippling, right? I mean, that leaves you very little to actually do anything with. Again, that's why it's so important for us to get rid of this high interest debt that we have, and that truly impacts our ability to live skillfully from a financial standpoint when you're just saddled with all kinds of debt that, as I mentioned earlier, you're basically making someone else wealthy and contributing very little to your own wealth building opportunities. So that's the stuff that we just have to get rid of as quickly as we can, as quickly as possible. Who else?
And like Pastor Simmons has said before, income earned by wages is really one of the worst types of income you can make, because you did mention six figures, and so out of transparency, I've been at six figures. And the more money you make, the more taxes. So you can be making $130,000 or $140,000, but you're probably only bringing home 60, 70. So just because you're at a six-figure income doesn't mean, oh, I'm rich, I'm filthy rich, I got it going on, I can buy what I want. You still have to really budget and
Absolutely.
all of that. Okay.
As I said, the dollar amount you have does not negate the need to plan your spending. Yes, sir. Oh, I thought I saw a hand back there, sorry. So, you know, and we haven't really gotten to this, but at some point we probably will. When you talk about the taxes, that's why we have to really look at how much when we have opportunities to contribute to a 401k, even if you are employed, 401k, 403b, 457b, whatever vehicle you have where you work. There's a lot of talk about Roth, and if you don't know, we'll probably get into this, but Roth and all this stuff, but that's why the tax-deferred contributions are so important for a person who makes really good, and they can keep more of that money before it's taxed. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the discussion. I've absolutely enjoyed it. I've had a ball. I don't know if anybody enjoyed it more than I did. So at this point, again, I thank you guys for being attentive, and I'm going to turn it over to our brother to close us out.
One more time for our facilitator. Marvelous job. And we want to thank you for your participation as well, and we had a wonderful discussion, and what we need to do now is what? Put it into practice. And we thank you all for being here, and those in live stream for joining us, and let us pray. Our Father, our God, we thank you now for what we've heard this evening, God. And we pray now, Lord, that we can take it to heart and not just be hearers only, but doers as well, Lord God, that we will share this information. And even as our brother encouraged us, when we sit around the table, whatever we're doing, oh God, we ask that you would just be with us in our midst, and let us not only talk about it, God, but we would just put it in practice. And now, God, we ask you to just bless your people who continue to share with those. And those that are sick, touch, oh Lord, in the name of Jesus. And God, with those that are grieving, whatever the situation is, God, just be a God in that midst. And we thank you in advance for what you're going to do, for the great report that's going to come forth. In Christ's name, amen. All right, have a wonderful evening.